The hotel in another dimension. It all began innocently enough in October 1979, when two married couples from the English town of Dover set off together on a vacation, intending to travel through France and Spain. The journey traversed another world. Geoff and Pauline Simpson and their friends Len and Cynthia Sisby boarded a ship that took them across the English Channel to the French coast. There they rented a car and headed south. At 9:30 p.m. on that first evening, October 3rd, they began to feel tired and looked for a place to spend the night. As they exited the highway, they found an elegant-looking motel. Len entered and in the lobby met a man in a strange plum-colored uniform. The man said there were no rooms available, but that further south along the road they could find a small motel. Len thanked him and set off again with his traveling companions. On the way they were impressed by the oldness of the cobblestone road and the buildings they passed. They also saw signs advertising a circus. It was very old-fashioned, Pauline recalled, that's why it piqued our interest so much. Eventually the tourists saw a long, low building with a row of lighted windows. Men stood in front of the facade, and when Cynthia asked them for information they replied that the place was a tavern, not a hotel. The travelers continued on until they saw two buildings, a police station and a hotel. The interior of the latter was made of solid wood. There were no tablecloths on the tables, nor was there any sign of amenities, telephones or elevators. The rooms were no less strange. The beds had heavy sheets and were without pillows. The doors had no locks, only wooden posts. The bathroom, which the two couples had to share, had antiquated plumbing. After eating dinner, they returned to their rooms and fell asleep. They awoke when sunlight filtered through the windows, which consisted only of wooden shutters, without glass. They went to the dining room again and ate a simple breakfast of black and horrible coffee, as Geoff recalled. While they were still at the table, a woman in a silk evening gown with a small dog under her arm sat across from them. It was strange, Pauline added. She looked like she had just come back from a dance, but it was 8:00 in the morning. I couldn't take my eyes off her. At this point two gendarmes entered the room. They were completely different from the gendarmes we saw anywhere else in France, Geoff testified. Their uniforms looked very old. The policemen wore dark blue uniforms, with capes over their shoulders and wide, pointed hats. Despite these oddities, the two couples enjoyed themselves, and when they were back in their rooms the two husbands separately took pictures of their wives standing in front of the windows with the shutters closed. Before leaving again, Len and Geoff asked the gendarmes which was the best way to reach Avignon and the Spanish border. The gendarmes gave the impression that they did not understand the meaning of the word highway, and the tourists thought they had not pronounced the French word correctly. The directions they received did not satisfy them because they would have to follow an old road a few kilometers off the route. Instead, they decided to rely on the topographical map and take a more direct route along the highway. After their luggage was loaded into the car, Len went to pay the bill and was stunned, and the manager asked for only 19 francs. Thinking of a misunderstanding, Len explained that there were 4 of them and that they had consumed a meal. The manager merely nodded. Len showed the bill to the gendarmes, who smilingly assured him that nothing had been overlooked. He paid in cash and left before they could change their minds. On their return, after spending 2 weeks in Spain, the two couples decided to stop at the hotel again. They had spent pleasant and interesting hours there, and at surely unbeatable prices. The night was rainy and cold, visibility poor, but they found the detour and noticed the circus poster they had already seen. Yes, of course, it is the right road, Pauline observed. It was, but there was no hotel on it. Convinced that they had passed by it without noticing it for one reason or another, they walked back to the motel where they had been briefed by the man in the plum-colored uniform. The motel was there, but not the man dressed so strangely, and the clerk denied that such a guy worked there. 3 times they retraced their steps in search of something that, as they were now beginning to realize, was no longer there. It had vanished without a trace. They headed north and stayed overnight in a lion alberga. Rooms with modern amenities, breakfast and lunch cost them 247 francs. Upon their return to Dover, Geoff and Len had their respective rolls of film developed. In both cases, photographs of the hotel, one of Geoff's only, 2 of Len's, were in the middle of the roll. But when they went to get the photos, those taken inside the hotel were missing. There were no failed negatives. Each film had its full number of poses. It was as if the photos had never been taken. Except for one small detail that was noted by a Yorkshire television reporter, there was evidence that the camera had tried to rewind the film to the middle of the roll. The perforations of the negatives appeared damaged. The two pairs of friends did not talk about their experience for 3 years except with friends and family. One of their friends found a book showing that the gendarmes wore the uniforms they described before 1905. Eventually a Dover newspaper reporter learned about it and published a story. Later a local television station produced a scripted reconstruction of the episode. In 1985 Manchester psychiatrist Albert Keller hypnotized Geoff Simpson to see if he could remember anything more about the strange event. Under hypnosis he added nothing new to what he consciously remembered. Jenny Randalls, an English writer who researched that bizarre affair, asks, what really happened to the 4 travelers in the French countryside? Was there a time slip? If so, why didn't the hotel manager then seem surprised about their futuristic vehicle and clothes, and how come he accepted their 1979 bills, which no doubt would have seemed strange to anyone living so far back in the past? The travelers, perhaps time travelers, have no explanation to offer. All we know is that it happened, proclaims Geoff.